Hello and welcome to the second episode of my 2000 point league with Chaos Knights. In this game I went against Necron's Star Shatter Assault and we had the primary mission of Purge the Foe with the mission rule of Smoke and Mirrors. So for my list it is slightly different this time. So I'm using a Chaos Knight Lancer. I'm also using a Stalker that has the sticky objectives enhancement. Then we've got 6 Brigands, all using the indirect fire Havoc launcher. Then we've got 3 Carnivores, also using the indirect Havoc launcher, just because the indirect is so good. While we're talking about the list, I'm going to give a massive shout out about the Lancer that was painted by a friend called Thick Daddy Paints. I will leave links to as much of his stuff as I can in the comments, as he's done a great job on this, and he's done me a massive favour painting it to begin with. So at the end of the video, I will give much more of a shout out towards him, and as I said, his links will be in the description, so feel free to message him for any commissions you may have, or if you just want to talk about tabletop. He mainly plays Death Guard, so I'm sure he will be more than happy to show and talk about what he's done with his Death Guard, because he's gone for like a purple kind of Death Guard, and they look really cool. So well worth checking out, whether it's for a commission or just to see some nice looking models. So going into the game, in classic fashion for me, I forgot to take pictures of deployment, but you can see my deployment here besides the carnivore. So the blue one that is now in the right next to the L-shaped ruins, he moved across. Other than that, this was my deployment. My opponent has just started to move their models, which is why the Wraiths are now on the centre objective. I did not realise until this game just how durable the Wraiths are. So they've got a 4+ invulnerable, 4 wounds each, and he had a Technomancer with them that gave them, I believe, a 5+ Feel No Pain. That was just, it was so hard to move. You can see at the top as well, he also has the Silent King, and that model next to it is the Catan Shard Deceiver, I believe is the name of it. It's whatever the melee one is called, so feel free to correct me. I did draw, so I ended up going first. I drew Overwhelming Force and Marked for Death in my first turn, which I could not do either. So, you saw in the previous picture, I literally just moved up that carnivore so it was ready to go in the next turn, and that was all I did, because I didn't want to be moving closer to his Catan Shard and the Silent King, and I also didn't want to be moving out into his gun lines, because I would not survive. On my opponent's first turn, he drew Area Denial and Assassination. Oh, sorry, at the end of my turn, I discarded Overwhelming for a command point. So in his turn, Area Denial and Assassination. He got Area Denial, no problems, and then discarded Assassination at the end of his turn for a CP. Which I did not realise how much CP he was going to have going into this game, because Imhotep gives you an extra one. So because I was going first, I don't think he used CP in my turn in any round. So yeah, going into his turn, he had at least 3 CP every time, which was very annoying because I just couldn't see Imhotep either. He was sat on his home objective. So I was throwing the indirect Havoc launchers at him, but it really wasn't doing much. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the strategy of the list, as well as why I included the Lancer and what I took out to include the Lancer. So, starting with that, what I took out 3 carnivores to be able to do it. I thought it was better to take out carnivores than brigands, because he's still a big melee threat, which is what the carnivores were. So it made more sense to get rid of a melee one if I'm replacing it with a melee one, so I wasn't more skewed in like with a melee list kind of thing. Other than that, the idea was for the Lancer, because it can use Tank Shock for free, even if you've already used it. So this was going to help me against any things that negate damage or half damage kind of thing, which Catans do. So Catans half the damage, they have a 4 up invulnerable, and they have a 5 up feel no pain. So I knew I was going to need something to be able to punch through it, hoping that the tank shock would help with that. And because of how half damage works, melters, so the melter on the brigands is d6 damage, but it's melter 4, so it only halves the d6. The melter 4 will still go through at full power. That does not get halved. So I'm doing a minimum of 5 damage with it and a maximum of 8, which would be really helpful. Shooting it with, let's say, only one goes through. Just for example, let's say I get the minimum, I get 5. I can then charge with a carnivore and tank shock. I can then charge with the Lancer and tank shock, which is, that's 22 dice on 5s or 6s it causes a mortal, which he does have the feel no pain against, but the idea is that if there is a big threat or multiple big threats, I can easily deal with them without too much issue. And knights in general are alright against like anti-chaff. They're not incredible, but they can get the job done. So that was the main idea of it. The strategy for the army is to get the carnivores up the field pretty much as soon as possible, that you can do reliably. But obviously you don't want to throw them out into the middle of nowhere, because you don't want to use units that you don't have to. And then the brigands are there to hold my back line and to screen the best that they can. So it does struggle with any army that has a 6-inch deep strike, such as demons, and I believe one of the Necron detachments does. I'm sure there's something else that does, Genestealer cults maybe, but they're the examples I can think of off the top of my head. So I've got the brigands and the stalker in the back, but I would like to start moving the stalker up more. I tend to keep it very reserved when I don't necessarily need to. I think I should start using it more like a makeshift carnivore, opposed to a makeshift brigand. But that's a me problem. The idea of the Lancer is, because it's got the flat 4 up invulnerable save, it can take a punch, also having 25 wounds. So it can take a few hits before going down. I've just realised I've been talking about this for way too long, so the scorecard is about to come up. Yeah, that's the main idea of it. You put pressure on with the Lancer and the carnivores, then the brigands screen your back line and just shoot when they get the opportunity. Or you can be a bit more aggressive with them if you need to, if there's a big threat coming towards you, kind of thing, like a Stomper, a Catan, a Great Demon, or even like a Primarch coming towards you, that you can use that to kind of counteract it. So I will do a more in-depth video on Chaos Knights after I finish with this league, but going back to the game, I did lose, but it came down right to the last turn, and both me and my opponent agreed that it was just came down to my dice rolls being unfortunate. So in the last 3 turns, I missed every melter, or they hit but didn't wound. And that was the last 3 turns. Turn 3 and turn 4, I had 6 brigands. Come turn 5, I had 5 brigands. And every single melter in those 2 turns did nothing. So it was an unfortunate game. I think I could have won if a few of those melters went through, but I'm not going to dwell on that. Going back to Thick Daddy Paints, as I said I was going to, this is just an advertisement for his accounts and for his commission painting. He did an incredible job on this Lancer, and as I said, he paints Death Guard mainly, but he's painting all different kinds of stuff. He's a great guy. He is more than willing to paint models how you want them. If you want ideas for something, or you want something painted, you don't know how you want it painted yet, definitely send him a message. He knows way more about the painting side of the hobby than I do, and as you can see, the results are great. So there'll be links to him in the description. Please go give him a follow, and I will see you next time. Hopefully he will see you soon.